Okay, hello. Now, let's start with a warning. This short story, it might potentially be triggering for some of you who are listening. It deals with medical issues surrounding children, and it's a really well-known case. Now, hang on. Before you reach to turn it off, hold up for just a second. I'm going to level with you. I struggle with stories involving kids. It kind of makes my whole body and everything just go weird. I feel ill, upset, angry, but that's not what's going to happen in this story. It's not some maniac inflicting pain. It's not a story to give you nightmares or to feel sad. In a way, it's oddly uplifting, I hope. So, even though stories about kids are hard, stick with me, trust me, I promise it'll be okay. Thank you. Dust, dirt, air, all dangerous. Wear gloves, wear a hat, wear a coat. Breath, skin, hair, all dangerous. Wear plastic clothing. Wear a mouth guard. Wear a white coat. Sterilise everything, and I mean everything. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Okay. On with the shout outs for this episode, short and sweet. Sabina Shaheen. I love saying your name. What a great name. Sabina Shaheen, and I hope that's right. Hello. Excellent future episode suggestion from you. Thank you. Jenny Foxcroft. Shout out to Jenny, Jenny, I've given you a shout out before, but I think you deserve another one, just cause you do. And lastly, Katrin Murnane, who is listening through YouTube. Yeah, get this, folks, I'm on the YouTubes. I'm so cool. I'm on the YouTubes. Katrin's daughter Chantal put her onto the stories, and now she's listening. So Katrin and Chantal, hello. Okay, this week's short story. It's one some of you might know. I think it's one some of you will never heard of. The story was made into a film, although a heavily fictionalised film in the 1970s, starring the wonderful young John Travolta. Some of you might know I'm obsessed with young John Travolta. That's not why I've picked this story. This just happens to be a completely, like, a fact on the side. I didn't realise. Started looking at the story, and then as the more I got into it, I was like, oh, John Travolta did this story, but a very, very Hollywood version of it, not really the real version of it. Yeah, love myself some young John Travolta. Not so much the 2018 version of him, but, you know, who doesn't love young John Travolta? Grease, you know, come on, amazing. I got chills, they're multiplying, and I'm losing control. All that stuff, brilliant. And yet, you know what? I'm just going to say this. Jessica Lee Crook, you can just pipe down about me trying to use the podcast to launch my singing career. Because we all know, given my beautiful singing voice, I think I'd literally be the next bloody Whitney Houston. I think I would. Maybe minus the heroin addiction, but, you know. Anyway, right, I'm babbling now like a dickhead. So, I'll get on with it. This story, it's a sad one. It's an unusual one. As I said, I'm not promising this story is easy, but I am promising it's worth it. The name, when I say it, will ring a bell to some of you. It'll mean nothing to others, and for some of you, it will bring about immediate images from the media. Really powerful images. This is the story of David Vetter. Are we ready? Okay, let's go. In 1968, David and Carol Vetter gave birth to a son. David and Carol lived in Houston, Texas. Now they decided to name the first son in the family David, after his dad, David Sr. So right, this was their second child. They already had a daughter who was their firstborn child. So they had their firstborn daughter, and now they had a new son. As soon as baby David is born, they're told immediately by doctors, something isn't right. Something in David's immune system isn't working properly, and he's in danger. So he's placed in special isolation, and he's cared for by hospital staff 24 hours a day. Now his parents, they're obviously stressed, upset, fucking confused as to why they've given birth to a healthy baby daughter a few years before, and now here's their baby boy and he's in danger. After weeks of treatment and months of tests, doctors tell David and Carol that the chances of survival for the baby are very slim. After 7 months, never leaving the hospital, baby David dies. His young body just can't cope with the immune system problems it's having. So Carol and David, they go into a period of grief and questioning. They talk to doctors who, remembering this is late 60s, so this is 1968. They talk to doctors about whether or not they can have more children and what the implications of that might be. Now, doctors have got some knowledge, but they don't have an amazing amount of knowledge at this time about problems with a child's immune system. Carol and David decide that they want to try again for another baby, and doctors say to them, look, here's the thing. With the information we have based on your last child's death, all that we can say is, if you have another child, and we think specifically a male child, there is a 50% chance he will be born with the same problems. So what actually is the problem? Well, the problem is, the acronym for it is SCID, and it stands for Severe Combined Immune Deficiency. In a nutshell, what it means is that a child is born with such a poor immune system that anything that it comes into contact with is immediately a danger. It just means that that child has no way in their body from the minute they're born. They have no way in their body to be able to fight any kind of infection or allergy or just anything at all. That body is not equipped to be able to fight anything off. So, Carol and David, they have a choice ahead of them. But they decide they're going to go ahead, they're going to try for another baby. And Carol successfully conceives another child. And within a few months, she has her scans, and the scans reveal it's a boy. Now, this time around, they are prepared. The doctors do like lots and lots of tests leading up to the birth. And it seems that the baby boy that they're about to have will be born with immediate problems in the immune system. But this time, they're slightly ahead of the game. They weren't ready for it the first time, but now they're just slightly ahead of the game. So, for the sake of balance here, because I quite like to balance opinion, some people will say, what the hell were they thinking? They knew the risks. They'd already lost a boy because of this, and now here they are trying again. Doctors have warned them. If you have another male child, chances are you're going to be in the same position. But they've gone ahead with it. Others will say, well, you know what? It's their life. It's their grief. If they want to go through it again, it's their choice. Now, I don't like to sit on the fence with issues. I really don't like to sit on the fence with it. I feel like sometimes I never not have an opinion on something. But I do feel like this is one of those situations where I go, this is something, like, I've not been through this. I've not been through this, and I don't know what choice I would have made in that moment. So I have to hand it over to Carol and David and say, if you've made the choice that you want to go ahead and have a second child and possibly go through the grief of losing them again, then that's your choice. Because, you know what? I can hear, because this is a secret skill that I have, I can hear some of you thinking, but it's not just about them. And I know that. For a start, it's about the child who may or may not be born with immune system problems. And it's about the other members of the family. And it's the hospital staff. And it's God knows how many other people could be affected by this. I know all that. I can hear it. Anyway, leading up to the birth, more tests are done, and it's discovered that the baby's immune system isn't developing correctly in the womb. Now, they've been here once before, and the hospital are ready. And this is really where the story becomes the story that's so well known. I think that was just a really bollocks sentence I said. The story will become the story that's really well known. You know what I'm trying to say? This is where the story really will become the story. How many more fucking times can I say the word story? This will now be the... I'm not going to say the word story anymore. Shut up, Barry. Get on with it. In preparation for the birth, the hospital prepare a sterilised bubble made of plastic with a bed in it for the newborn. Carol gives birth to a baby boy and they name him David. Slightly confusing because they named the boy who had died before David. But, they've got their reasons, and the father is David, so okay. Now, as soon as he's born, he goes into the bubble. David has unfortunately been born with an even worse version of the immune system disorder that his brother, who didn't survive, had. But doctors think this time they are ahead of the game. They think that the bubble is the way to give David a life. So he's diagnosed immediately with SCID. In a nutshell, David has no immune system. It means that basically everything that he's going to come into contact with in life is a threat to him. He can't come into contact with any germs, any foreign bodies. They will harm him. But doctors and specialists, they think if we can just make sure that nothing unsterilised goes into that bubble, he cannot possibly come into contact with germs. Now, the facts are quite simple on paper, but the reality is David has to live 24 hours a day inside that bubble. Get this fact. I found this insane. In order for anything at all to go into the bubble, which are all of the things that a newborn baby needs: food, milk, nappies, blankets, everything, and I mean everything. It had to be placed in a chamber that was filled with a specific gas for 4 hours at 140 degrees, and then it had to be aired for a period of 7 days before it could go anywhere near David. I mean, can you imagine the kind of preparation that would take? Like, I was thinking about, like, what if baby David woke up in the middle of the night and he's screaming for food? Right now, he wants milk. He wants it right now. The level of preparation to make sure that there was always milk ready, that was sterilised, that everything around it was sterilised. That must have been insane. So, you know what? Hats off to those people in the hospital and to his parents, who the level of preparation must just have been insane. And this is a really unique situation in 1971. This has never happened before. The family, the doctors, the nurses, they dedicate themselves to making sure that whatever they need to do, they will do to keep baby David alive. I started to worry at this point in the story about touch. I started thinking about touch and thinking, okay, I understand that his milk and his blankets and his nappies and everything is sterilised, but what about actual human touch? Because the lack of that can be catastrophic for a baby. But I did my research, and don't panic, it's okay. He was able to be held from outside of the bubble by his family. So they had to wear like these like long special black gloves, but they were able to sort of hold him. He was in the bubble and they were able to hold him. I mean, not, there was still the bubble between him and them, but he was still getting that touch. So that put my panic aside slightly, because I was worried that I was like, shit, what if he can never be touched? What the fuck's happening? But no, it's fine. He was still able to be held, to be touched. So David, he continues to grow stronger and stronger, and he develops really well inside the bubble. Eventually he gets brought home from the hospital, and he's at home. And time passes, a couple of months, and it's all working quite well. David's in the bubble. He starts to move towards toddler stage, and he's going through all the same things that a toddler goes through. So he's still, doing the whole kind of, I'm trying to find my legs to work. I'm still trying to, move about and all that sort of stuff. Honestly, it's one of my favourite things, watching a toddler trying to be like, I'm going to get my legs, I'm going to keep moving. I remember it with my niece and nephew. It's so brilliant. Just like when they're that age and they're like, I am so determined to walk towards you. I am going to walk towards you. And if you try and get in their way, they're like, no, I'm doing it. I'm on my own. And then they like fall on their arse. You have to pick them up. And they're like, I'm going to go at it again. I'm just going to keep going. So David was going through all these things. He was still, even though he's in the bubble, he's still learning to walk. He's still learning all of those things. So looking at the situation, doctors and the family, they wonder, well, what is the long term hold for David? Can he exist in a bubble forever? Or is there a way to treat his body and find a cure? Now, it's 1971, and doctors can only come up with one way to possibly cure David, and that is a bone marrow transplant. And that would mean that a family member needed to be the perfect match for David. So, tests are done on the immediate family, and no one is a match. So, doctors say, okay, well, let's go to the more extended family. Let's see if we can find somebody in the family who might be that match. They move away from the parents, his sister, and they discover that it looks like David's aunt might be a match for bone marrow. So the family, they prepare themselves. The aunt says, of course, I will give David whatever he needs to survive. And more tests are done. Heartbreakingly, it's discovered she isn't a match. Even though it looked like at first that she would be, she isn't. And the family are back to square one. Oh, horrible. Horrible that they just got their hopes up and then it's just a no. Now you can understand this, but the family don't really want a lot of attention around David. But there's two things to consider. Number one, this was new territory for medicine. And because it was new territory, it was never going to stay under wraps for long. And number two, if we've learned anything, my friends, through the press, if they want a story, you fucking better believe they will get to it. And get to it, they did. And so, they got pictures of David at a young age in his bubble. And these pictures were all across the media. They were on the news. They were in newspapers. He was the boy in the bubble. Now, as horrible as that might have been at the time for his parents, Carol and David, for the family, for the doctors who were doing their very best to work this bloody situation out, it might not have been the worst thing. And we'll learn that later in the story. It might not have been the worst. So, in the bubble, it's working. David's surviving and he's growing, and actually he's turning into a healthy little guy. He's getting older. So when he gets to like age 4, age 5, schooling begins at home for David. And a teacher will come to the house every day. And what they do is they like place a speaker inside of the bubble, obviously heavily sterilised, inside his bubble. The teacher speaks from outside and he's able to learn all the things that he would be learning at school if he was 4 or 5. You know, he's learning maths, he's learning English, he's learning all these things, okay? By age 6, by age 7, he is fully used to the bubble, as are those in his life. Everyone is now used to it's David in the bubble. It's funny that, isn't it? It's one of those weird things, like, from the outside that just seems really bizarre. But I think it's interesting how, as humans, we kind of underestimate ourselves in how quickly we just adapt and how quickly we just kind of normalise things so quickly and without a fuss. So it's becoming normal for the family. Now it's becoming normal for the family, but for people watching this from the outside, there is a lot of ethical discussions going on around David. An entire conference is held in which they gather together doctors, scientists, medical experts who all want to discuss the pros and the cons of David's living situation, because it was new. This had never happened before. So some will ask this question: what will happen on the day that David says, I want out of this bubble? What do? If we let him out the bubble, he dies. People will ask, does David actually have any quality of life living in this? The argument will be, well, of course he does. He's alive. And quite frankly, that is a miracle. So, shut your face. I'm pretty sure they said it in a better way than shut your face, but that's the kind of, that's the nuts and bolts really of what the comeback was. You can have a discussion around ethics of life. You can say, should he be living in this? Should he not? Or whatever. And actually the comeback is, well, you know what? He's getting older, he's growing stronger, and he's alive. So, shut it. So by age 7, David's story, it's taken such a place in the hearts and in the minds of scientists and doctors. People are fascinated by this. Now, I think this is crazy, but I love it. NASA actually designed David a suit which would allow him to get out of the bubble. I mean, that's pretty cool. A specially designed suit from NASA. And it's amazing what they design. It kind of looks a little bit like what you would maybe dress a kid up at Halloween in a spaceman suit. That's kind of what it looks like. But it is fully built for David. It's absolutely amazing. So he's wearing the suit, he's out of the bubble, and he's able to play with other kids. There's brilliant footage of him and his sister just like kicking a ball around the room, and they're play fighting together, and he's out of that bubble and he's in the suit. And it's absolutely gorgeous to see that. Now, truth be told, David didn't actually like the suit that much. And when he outgrows it, he quickly says to his mum and dad he wants to go back into the bubble. Now what NASA do is they think, oh, he's outgrown the suit, so what we'll do is we'll just make him one in a bigger size, and we'll just keep making them in a bigger size and a bigger size and a bigger size. But he actually decides he just kind of wants to go back into the bubble. I maybe get that. I don't get it because obviously that's not been my life, but I understand that if you've been born and you've lived in that bubble all your time, getting out there in your suit is freedom, but also must be a lot of fear involved in that as well. So anyway, he decides to go back into the bubble 24 hours a day. So David is beginning to approach age kind of 10, 11. And really, by now, doctors, they're starting to talk to his parents and say, okay, we're going to need to make a decision about the future. We're all in completely unknown territory. But how do we proceed? Is David going to be a 40-year-old in a bubble? Like, where do we go here? What do we do? So after a few months of these discussions, doctors come back and they say, look, we think we've made some progress in our kind of understanding of what this is. And we really think that bone marrow transplant will work. Even though he's becoming a teenager. David is 12 at this point. They say, let's test again for matches. Let's see if there's just anyone who can match with David. Now this time, it's success quickly. It's his older sister. She looks like she is a match. Now she didn't look like a match when she was younger, but now it looks like she might be the perfect match for David. So good news. So the family look at this option. They look at it and they think, right, okay, will David get an operation, which will mean he can live outside of the bubble? And they decide they want to go ahead. The day of the operation arrives and David is taken in his bubble to the hospital. Day 1. The operation. And it's looking good. His body looks like it's taken well to the bone marrow transplant. Day 2. David's temperature begins to rise. Day 3. His temperature is through the roof. By the end of day 4, David is on the national news and it's not good. David's body has gone into a critical condition. His body just could not cope with what it was facing. And at age 12, 2 weeks after his operation, David dies in the hospital. His body just could not cope being outside the bubble. And so for the second time in 13 years, Carol and David bury a child. David's mum, Carol, said this. David was courageous. He was strong. And he was a fighter. There will never be another child like David who lived his life in a bubble And if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. Because I loved that boy. And I will love him till the day that I die. My boy in a bubble. You know, see, when I started this story, I didn't really know how it was going to end. I genuinely sometimes don't like to know the ending of a story. Prefer to just kind of find the ending as it goes. But yeah, I found this one tough because I really wanted it to end with something positive. And I think in a way, maybe, I know it's rough, but I think maybe I can find a little bit of a positive here. Well, David's story it's tragic, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there is. The media attention. Remember I said to you earlier on, yes, the media were invasive, and yes, they published lots of pictures of David, and it was constantly on the news. But actually, there was a positive out of that. The positive was that actually, David's condition, it's not rare to him. It's actually a condition that lots of babies are born with, just not at that time. They just weren't born with it at that time, or if they were, doctors had no idea what they were dealing with. But suddenly, that condition was visible. It had a face. Now, I don't work in the medical field, but I know people in the medical field, they fight hard for visibility. They fight hard. You know, there's lots of things out there that are visible. So we all know cancer, we all know AIDS, we all know all these things that are visible all the time. So what about something that's actually killing lots of kids around the world, that lots of babies are born with? Well, you know, the boy in the bubble, it actually brought about visibility to this absolutely horrific thing that you can be born with. What David's death brought about, and I just find this really fascinating, is, if you remember when I said in the beginning about David, they wanted a bone marrow transplant when he was a baby, but they couldn't find the match. Doctors are now, or they've learned, from David, that actually, if you can do a bone marrow transplant to a baby who has that immune deficiency at a really young age, you have a 98% chance of that baby living the healthiest life ever. They're just going to live. But if you can't do it as a baby, that's where problems lie. And that's what they learned from David. And it's horrible to say that he had to live and die for that to be something that doctors learned. And yeah, and you would never want to say that about anyone, but actually, that's at least you can say that's the legacy of David. You know what I mean? That you can say that at least doctors know that now. I mean, I know that's slightly clutching at straws to find a positive in it, but it for me, I sort of look at that and go, well, it means at least his life wasn't in vain. Get this, right? I find this so strange now. During a scan now of a pregnant woman, if they can detect that the fetus that's growing has the same immune deficiency system, a bone marrow operation can happen while the baby is in the womb. Fuck me. I love medicine. That's amazing. I think that is so incredible. So, those babies where that's detected, they're born out and they stand a chance to survive. Babies who are diagnosed in the womb or in the first few weeks of birth are now fully grown adults with their own kids. So, yes, it's hard because it took medicine and it took science to work all that out during David's life to try and figure that out. And it's tragic to think that David only lived 12 years of his life and he spent it in a bubble. But what you can say is that the legacy that he left behind will never be forgotten. He'll always be known as the boy in the bubble. And so ends the story. Okay, well, I look forward to your thoughts, feelings, your opinions, your soul, your blood. Kidding. Okay, if you want to get in touch, you know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm everywhere. So tonight I started my new thing on Facebook called Listener Spotlight. Just to give you a very brief description, Listener Spotlight is about you. I cannot tell you how grateful I am. I really can't tell you how grateful I am for how many people get in touch with me, A, about the podcast, B, to give me stories, C, just to kind of tell me anything about themselves. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I'm not going to be the kind of wanker that like thinks that like because I do a podcast it's amazing. It's not. It's about you. It's about people who listen. It's about people who listen, and that's what I'm about. So, Listener Spotlight, it's about you. I just want to turn it on you and say, you tell me about you, because that's actually what I'm really interested in. I'm just really interested to know who you are, because you know I love a story. You know I love to get into someone's story, and I really like that. So, Listener Spotlight is going to be a thing that I'm going to be doing all the time now with the podcast, where I want to know about you, right? Okay? I'm always going to be the fucking madman who sits in a room and tells stories. That's not going to change. Do you know what I mean? So it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about you. And I want to hear from you. And I want to celebrate you. I want to celebrate you for being someone who actually takes the time out of your day, whatever you're doing, wherever you're working, to listen to my Scottish ramblings. Okay. That's it. Everyone, I'm out of here. Until the weekend. Okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.
Bonnie? It's Brittany, bitch.
Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.